Welcome on the show, Vicky. It's great to have you on.
I'm a visual effects artist, to be more specific, compositor, but also a generalist. And yeah, I've worked with with over 20 plus studios and filmmakers and on over 30 plus projects, independent and Hollywood, as well,
Yeah.
different positions as compositor. And as you've mentioned, also, I write books, I
Mhm.
teach online, I do other stuff besides
Yeah.
visual effects.
Are you able to tell us a bit about how you got into the VFX industry?
Yes, so it started when I was 14, and basically, I was kind of a very quiet, shy girl, and
Mm.
yeah, I felt like I didn't really have a voice until I was given a camcorder, and then I started filming random stuff, bits of nature, the bird flying and jumping around. So from there, it kind of grew into video editing. So I kind of enjoyed the idea of being able to tell my story and have a voice. Through video editing, and from video editing it kind of evolved into visual effects. So that's how I got into visual effects, because I felt like it was that channel of self-expression for me.
Mhm.
That's why I do visual effects. So there you go.
All right. Yeah. So just okay. So just taking it back a bit. So what when you realized you had that interest, how then did you get to where you're currently at? So like where did you study or what did you study, and how
Good
did you get your
question.
foot? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, wow, that's a long time ago, cause 14, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so since I knew what I wanted to do at that age, I kind of studied exactly, what I wanted to do. So, in Singapore, which is where I'm from, I went to like an institution to study digital media, which included computer generated effects. And then I
Mhm.
also went to the US and went to Savannah College of Art Design, which is SCAD, and studied visual effects and got my bachelor's in visual effects as well. And from there, how I broke into Hollywood is basically I got an internship, and that internship happened to be working on season 4 of The Walking Dead, which is pretty cool because that is my first ever job, and
Yeah.
also it's I haven't graduated yet from SCAD.
Right.
And so I think that's a really good thing to put on your portfolio. Say, hey, I worked on
Mhm.
The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. How did that internship come about? Did that come to you or did you go out looking for it?
Good question. So I was actually okay. It's going to be a very long story.
That's okay.
So like I said, when I was young, I was really quiet and shy, and that
Yeah.
habit of reading notice boards came to me because I didn't have any friends, so I was just standing around notice boards, reading whatever's on the notice board. So when I was at
Mhm.
SCAD, I still had that same habit of reading things on the notice board that nobody really cares about because of the phone, social media. But anyway, I was waiting for the elevator one day at school, and then I just looked to my right, and there was this notice board. And I just saw a little flyer that says, the call for interns for this internship program.
Mhm.
So I applied, and there was a selection process, obviously. And after long story short, because it's a really long story, but long story short, after many rounds of selections, I finally made it to the end, and that's when I realized, oh, the studio is Stargate Studios, and it just so happened that they worked on The Walking Dead at the time, which
Mhm.
obviously I didn't know. I was just happy to get an internship, and I would
Mhm.
definitely thank my reading notice board skill. So, so, so yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, amazing. So how then what followed up after the internship? Did you that wa- was that did that proceed into you getting your first job with them or at another studio?
Yeah. So again, the internship was before I graduated from SCAD, and
Yeah.
because I did a really good job, according to them, for the
Mm.
internship, they wanted to hire me immediately right after
Okay.
I graduated, and actually
Yeah.
before that.
Yeah.
So after I graduated in 2014.
Yeah.
That's when I got my first job with them, and
Yeah.
the rest is kind of
Oh
history
yeah,
in that
sure.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So because you specialize in, or you're like a generalist, and you you delve into like compositing and 3D and quite a bit of everything. So I just maybe firstly just tell us all of the different disciplinaries that you focus on.
Okay. So ever since I studied visual effects in
Yeah.
Singapore and then in the US, it's always been multidisciplinary. So I know 3D modeling,
Mm,
texturing, lighting,
yeah.
animating a little bit, and then also programming as well,
Right.
and also included when I studied at SCAD, visual effects, scripting, programming using Mal and
Right.
PyMal, and Python, depending on
Mm-hmm.
those. Yeah, and then also Houdini, procedural effects and compositing using Nuke and After Effects.
Yeah.
So it's basically almost every area of visual effects you could think of.
Mm-hmm.
I would say honestly though, the one that didn't really get a touch on that much is actually animating and rigging apparently.
Right.
But that besides that, everything else pretty much covered.
Yeah.
When it comes to my professional visual effects career, it's
Mm-hmm.
more of the compositing. But I've done Postvis, and just stereoscopic compositing. So that kind of wide variety, which
Right.
included, of course, in Postvis you get to use Maya, you do a little bit of
Yeah.
animating, lighting, and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So why do you think you're quite keen on specializing? I mean, not specializing in being a generalist in all of these areas instead of maybe like specializing in one field, is because you enjoy all of these different aspects, or you just
Yep.
how did that happen? Yeah.
Yep, you got it. So I've always been the one to never want to pigeonhole myself, even though I
Right.
understand that visual effects is a very specific niche. Like even if it's a niche, you have to kind of niche in the niche. So
Somehow.
you
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
be like really specialized. Yeah, exactly. You have to be really specialized in this.
Hmm.
But to me, I don't know. I just feel like I get bored easily sometimes. Compositing is cool. Though. I always say compositing is the one that gives you a lot of variety, but besides
Right.
that, I actually do enjoy doing a variety of things. Just my nature. So that's why I do a variety of things.
Yeah.
Of course, when in my professional visual effects career, they
Hmm.
probably would not want to hire me for 3D, let's say, animating because again my portfolio is more compositing. But
Hmm.
if I'm doing it by myself, then
Yeah.
obviously I have a lot of fun with that. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Tell us what it takes to be a compositor for postvis and finals.
Postvis is like that middleman intermediary process between when you there's of course there's more the previous tech biz whatever, but let's just
Mhm.
say that
Yeah.
it's the middleman of after you do the production and then
Hmm.
postvis and previous whatever and then finals, right? So I would say for me when I did postvis, the speed was very important, especially when it comes to features. It's
Hmm.
important to get those ideas and brainstorming visual effects out there because it's more about setting the scene rather than having that very polished, finished, and perfect visual
Hmm.
effects that the finaling department usually does. So when I
Yeah.
do finaling, which is I've done for television and commercials,
Hmm.
is mostly you have to get that polished look. Again, of course, when it comes to TV versus features, you tend to kind of have a longer time span to work on a shot compared to TV where you have to kind of churn out shots really quickly. So
Hmm.
so yeah, so there's definitely a lot of differences. But when it comes to compositing, just in general, whether it's post vis, stereoscopic or volumetric, whatever, it's really
Hmm.
just about problem solving. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, that reminds me because you have some volumetric compositing stuff on your show on your website.
Yes.
Um, since I'm not a compositor, are you able to just tell us, yeah, how complicated volumetric compositing and maybe as well as stereoscopic compositing is? Like, how difficult is it generally for artists to like to work on volumetric stuff and stereoscopic stuff?
Yeah, stereoscopic is again, I'm okay. I'm not going to assume that everyone knows. When they're
Hmm.
listening, maybe they could be new to visual effects. Stereoscopic is kind of
Hmm.
like creating 3D out of 2D, and then
Hmm.
volumetric is working with 4D data. So stereoscopic is really it depends on the method that the studio uses, and I just
Hmm.
happen to work at the studio where they do the manual kind of filtering out the layers. So that's what you
Hmm.
do as a stereoscopic compositor. For volumetric or 4D, compositing, what
Hmm.
I did at the time with the team was only 3 people, including myself.
Hmm.
So we used Nuke and basically tried to import all that particle data into Nuke and work with that and kind of make it look polished without that artifacts, because particles, they can have that random dots around the characters. So
Sure.
yeah, so that's volumetric. I mean, to keep it simple in terms of explanation,
Hmm.
stereoscopic is really just making sure that when you're layering them according to the studio's methods, that
Hmm.
when you try them on and you view them on the monitor, it doesn't make you sick or have that
Right.
artifacts on the side. And then volumetric is more like you're working with depth data as well. And back
Right.
then, they didn't have all the extra tools that now Nuke has. And I
Hmm.
believe also that studio has moved on to using Houdini for
Right.
compositing instead, so which is kind of interesting. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you able to tell us some of the pros and cons of being a generalist in art, yeah, different studios and
Yes. Yeah, so I worked at, well, different companies and with different filmmakers as well. I was mainly a
okay.
generalist with the filmmakers, although when I'm doing post-viz, obviously you have to kind of be a generalist there as well. The pros and cons of being a general, well, again, like it depends on the studio.
Of course,
I
yeah.
don't think that's really much. It's hard to define the pros and cons.
Yeah, sure, yeah,
But
of course.
again, as I said, like I was mainly a generalist with filmmakers, and then for
Yeah.
post viz, I guess the pros and cons for that. If you're talking about
Hmm.
generalist roles, pros, you get to kind of exercise your different skill sets in 3D, 2D, maybe a little bit of programming as well. And the cool thing
Hmm.
about post viz is you also get to use Unreal, which is pretty cool. Back
Okay.
then, it wasn't the case. Yeah, now you
Yeah.
get to kind of sometimes import models into Unreal and do the layout there.
Hmm.
I suppose the cons is your work, especially in post viz, is never going to be seen in cinemas. It's not the
Of
final
course.
shot. It
Yeah.
is the layout, but it's not the final thing that people see.
Yeah.
So you're behind the scenes, behind the scenes. Yeah,
Yeah. I know what you mean because yeah, it's
yeah,
pain. It can be painful sometimes because you yeah, some you work on great movies on Postvis side and usually you're not like too keen on using your work on your show reel um because because it doesn't it's not supposed to like look great even though you've worked as hard as you would on the finals anyway. So I know what you mean. It's,
yeah.
but
That's the other
yeah.
thing too. The other con is like you can't use it on your reel because it's not the final shot. so,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, do you working on Postvis affects you as a compositor, or because I know from experience, as a match move artist, or at least generally like artists transitioning from working in commercials to film, there's at least in the past there used to be like a hurdle where the film departments kind of like looked somehow like down on like commercials or like Postvis artists because they felt we didn't do this like we didn't do the same thing as they did, so they were quite skeptical. So I'm just wondering if you've had any issues where that has been the case for you, or maybe not.
That's a good question. Very deep question, actually. So I would say because I started out doing TV, so I didn't start in postvis.
Okay.
When I was at Stargate and when they hired me, it was television and commercial work, but mostly television work.
Hmm.
So the shots that I did for those shows were finals. So when I got into postvis, it wasn't hard for me to switch back to features or indies or television shows
Hmm.
because I already had a portfolio that's kind of not separate, but the one that I started with was TV work.
Hmm.
But to answer your other question on when TV or commercial people come in to film, and then there's that kind of, I guess, unspoken stigma, oh,
Hmm.
your TV, not
Yeah.
really as detailed.
Yeah.
I would say, actually, I think, in my view, when you work as a TV compositor, you have to be very quick and very
Hmm.
accurate 99.9% of the time. I mean, there are
Hmm.
some little minor mistakes that people get away with,
Yeah.
but usually you have to be accurate and fast.
Hmm.
But when you're doing film, you have all this, whole sweet time to work on your shot.
Yeah.
um, I think a TV person coming into film actually is more beneficial than the other way around, because
Right.
the feature person, the feature composer, is probably too used to that pace of that
Hmm.
kind of a slow. Not saying that they're all super slow, but like that normal kind of
Hmm.
take your time pace.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if anyone should be looking down on anyone.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's my opinion anyway. So
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Cool. So, yeah, what's been your favorite show to date and why?
Uh, my favorite show is still The Walking Dead.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, cause it's just because I know, just because it's like my first ever,
Hmm.
project, and the people there were awesome. They're
Hmm.
very they shared willingly their techniques and tricks, and also I'm a fan of the show.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's still my favorite
Yeah.
project ever.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Ah, cool. I was curious about how it is being a female Asian artist. Is it common? Is it common for people in from the Asian background to tend to go into creative industries like VFX, and how has your journey been?
Um, So your first question is actually, well, I think it's becoming more common, but back then,
Mhm.
okay, it's becoming more, but it's still not as common.
Right.
Because again, in Asian culture, regardless of whether it's Chinese, Indian, Malay, whatever,
Hmm.
there's always that stigma that, yeah, like creative industries, creative roles, you can never make money. You should be a lawyer, you should be a doctor, you should be an
Hmm.
engineer. That's where the money is at.
Yeah.
But it's not true actually. It depends again on the industry, and if your industry is tied in with technology, which visual effects is, or even video editing, stuff like that, it uses a computer. It's
Hmm.
actually easier to make money these days as a creative. But again, to answer your question, um, it's not as common, but it is becoming um, more common
Yeah.
for Asians to
Yeah.
get involved in the creative
Yeah.
industry. So
Yeah.
yes.
How did you convince your parents um about your career choice? Did they have any say in in what direction you should go into, as well as what you decided to go into?
Well, definitely they had. I believe a majority of parents out there will have some kind of say in whatever the child wants to do, right?
Mm.
But for me, yes, they had a say, but I was the kind of person that I was going to do whatever I wanted
Mm.
regardless. So
Right.
no one can stop me from pursuing this. So
Yeah.
yeah, so let's just to put it this way, if they had tried to convince me to do something else, I would have rebelled aggressively.
Right.
So they they saw the kind of success that I had in school in Singapore here, so they
Hmm.
just didn't question it at all. So I guess I'm lucky in that sense a little bit, that
Hmm.
they didn't question, because the results spoke for itself when I was in
Hmm.
Singapore doing
Yeah.
digital media. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, how is the industry, the VFX industry out there in Singapore? If you're up to date with it.
Yeah, so you see, most of my experience is in the US. I've actually
Okay.
never worked in Singapore, even though
Hmm.
I'm from
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
But I've met with a few studios before,
Hmm.
and I would say it's still a small industry. It kind of ties in with the film industry. The
Hmm.
animation and the games industry actually in Singapore is bigger than the film industry,
Okay.
but again, the visual effects scene is quite small here. But there are major studios here
Hmm.
like ILM, Lucasfilm is in Singapore. I think Double Negative used to be here and then they moved out. Yeah, there are
Hmm.
various studios here. They've planted their
Hmm.
offices here. Still
Hmm.
small though. So
Yeah.
definitely, if you're looking to get a job in Singapore, if anyone's looking, overseas work,
Hmm.
games and animation here in Singapore is bigger than visual
Hmm.
effects. So yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm curious about what drives you to be like so involved in the many activities that you take part of. Because I mean, because apart from being an artist, you well, you you seem to get up to quite a lot. Like I've noticed that you've done like TED talks, and like you've written like 2 books, and you also teach compositing to other people around the world. So I'm just curious about like what drives you and how you manage to do all of these things at the same time.
Yeah. So I was asked this some version of your question on other
Yeah.
podcast. What drives me? Well, part of what drives me, part of it anyway,
Hmm.
that I'm willing to share
Yeah.
is self-expression. You know, as I
Hmm.
mentioned, when I was 14 years old, I felt like I didn't have a voice. And again,
Hmm.
part of the Asian culture is that it's like children are meant to be seen but not heard kind of thing.
Of course. Yeah.
So when I was given a camcorder, it felt like I finally had a voice that I could
Hmm.
kind of express my thoughts and ideas. So part of what drives me is that self-expression. You know, whatever I do, whether I wrote books, give a talk, and I'm one of those people that love public speaking. It's like one of my
Okay.
favorite things to do.
Oh yeah.
Is because I get to express and be myself and express my ideas and execute. That's really what fundamentally drives me too. When I
Hmm.
have these books out, publish them,
Hmm.
teach people, I get to do what I want. That
Hmm.
self-expression, that
Hmm.
seeing ideas coming to life,
Yeah.
that's partially what drives me. So
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. It's incredible. It's amazing. What levels are your students, and like what are they typically looking to learn or get into?
Yeah, so it's a variety of people, and I've
Hmm.
noticed is yeah, definitely a huge range. So there are people who are transitioning careers who used to be engineers or used to be different positions. They wanted to get to
Hmm.
visual effects. There's one group. Another group which is quite interesting to see. This one is actually people who are seniors or junior artists already in the industry, which I was
Hmm.
kind of surprised because I'd be like, oh, okay, which is good to see because they're going back in to learn different things from another
Hmm.
artist. You would think that when they're already in, they're not going to bother looking at me, but they
Yeah.
still do, which I think is a good thing because again, it shows that
Hmm.
they're continuing to learn. Even they're not complacent, thinking that I know everything, but they seek out other artists who are at the level or even a
Yeah.
little bit below or above whatever. And then
Yeah.
of course there's the completely new out of school group. So those are the different groups I broadly categorize them in.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there's some like really, which is pretty cool. Again, a variety. There's like a few senior people who just want to
Hmm.
do it for fun, which is kind of
Right.
cute. And then there's like the really young teenager that wants
Hmm.
to learn this for high school project. Yeah, so
Right.
huge variety.
Yeah. What are their biggest concerns? I guess the juniors have much more bigger concerns than maybe the seniors that are currently doing it. But what are the common worries that they typically tend to have?
Definitely, the first one is getting a job in
Right.
visual effects. That's one of
Hmm.
their top concerns when they ask me questions. How
Hmm.
do I get a job? How do I cut my reel? That's another question.
Hmm.
I guess the third common question I get from these people or the students would be, do I need to be in the US to work in visual effects? And
Right.
usually I'll tell them, no, not necessary. It depends on where you
Hmm.
are. If you're in China or you're in India, you're Korea, or even Australia, UK.
Hmm.
There are markets like you're over there, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's lots of
I mean,
huge visual effects scene in the UK.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm in the UK right now, but I'm working with a German company. So yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's still, it's still again. There you go. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter where you are.
Yeah.
There's the little niche somewhere in
Hmm.
regardless of where you are in the world.
Yeah.
So yes, except Antarctica, but yeah. So there you go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just coming back to your books. Just can you tell us a bit about them and yeah, why you chose to write them?
Yeah, so my first book is called Why I Do VFX, The Untold
Hmm.
Truths About Working in Visual Effects. And honestly, that book was planned for in the future, but I decided to bring forth and do it now, which is why it's out
Hmm.
now. I well, I guess that's partly why I wrote it. The other reason why I wrote it is because I've always wondered, like when I look at visual effects book, especially when I was in school, you're forced to buy books. Most of
Yeah.
the books are like technical books. And I was just
Hmm.
wondering, there isn't a book out there specifically that talks about the politics or the systems or the contracts, whatever, involved in the industry. And so I decided to write one. And the other interesting thing about that is like most of the books, again, are written by men, which makes sense. It is a male dominated industry. So yeah, so again, the visual effects book that I wrote is like unique in that sense that it incorporates not only my personal experiences but also it touches on um, non technical side of visual effects.
Hmm.
So that's the first book. Second book
Yeah.
is called Not Your Starving Artist, which again touches on what you mentioned earlier about the Asian culture. Yeah,
Mm.
and how
Yeah, tell me about it. I'm
making
curious.
say what? Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it's about like how making money as an artist shouldn't be a taboo. And
Right.
I remember when I was writing this book, a flashback came to me when I was
Hmm.
doing an interview photo shoot with my school. I'm not going to say
Hmm.
the school, but it's a school,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they asked me a question about, I forgot what the question was, but I remember I responded by saying, "You go to where the money is at," and then everyone around me was giving me dirty looks, like how dare you say you go to where the money is at?
Yeah.
But I was like, I mean, it makes sense. Like, do you want to just starve as an artist, or do you want to make financial and business sense to
Mm.
survive and make those, practical choices? But yeah, I just realized, I noticed that the artist community tends to look down or shun people who aggressively make it known that they want to make money as an artist. I
Mm.
mean,
Mm.
that's the old days where you have to starve and like be living on the streets as an artist. Nowadays you don't have to necessarily do that. So that's why this book
Mm.
was well, not the reason, but that kind of inspired
Of course.
this book's creation. That I just remembered that happening, and I was like, I'm gonna put that in the book. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess like fundamentally, like, I mean, because there's two sides of it. Because usually it depends on the stage of your journey. You might choose to
Yeah.
go to work with the studio because it's been your dream, or you look up to them. But and then depending on another stage of your journey, you might just go in for based on how much you can earn. But I guess fundamentally, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about like money. So yeah, I think it's a valid point, and yeah, I think it's something that is great that you put it out there because yeah, it shouldn't be a taboo. It shouldn't be something that I mean, even like these days, it's generally as a freelancer, it can be quite tricky to speak to recruiters and get your daily rate to be agreed upon
Yeah.
because in some way somehow you I mean, you know what you're worth, but sometimes you feel like, should I like undercut myself so that I can get this job, or just like go in and tell them what my rate is and then potentially not get the job. So yeah, it's an issue, it's a debate that needs to be, it's worth discussing. So yeah, I think it's a great book and it's a great topic. So yeah,
Yeah, I think
how
also
yeah,
because, yes,
no, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I was gonna say also because like maybe as artists we feel like making great art is mutually exclusive from making great money, which I think is just embedded in most artists thinking. And I think it makes sense because society has always been saying, "Oh, money is evil,"
Yeah.
money is bad. But
Yeah.
no, it's just a tool. It's just a
Hmm.
neutral thing. It's an artificial thing created by people generally.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think because it's kind of embedded in our subconscious that
Hmm.
like maybe as an artist we should not be earning that much, whatever. But but yeah, it's long story short. In the book,
Yeah.
definitely touch on everything you just mentioned as well. So
Yeah.
yes.
What do you think are the benefits of putting your experience into a book as opposed to maybe writing a blog or doing like a vlog about them?
Good question. It was very cathartic. So I get to express again
Right.
self-expression. I get to express all the stuff in my
Yeah.
head, just put it out there,
Hmm.
and then execute and launch
Yeah.
the book.
Hmm.
So a blog, I would say, if I have to, yeah, it'll be a very long blog. It'll be like the tiny little scroll bar. I have
Yeah.
to scroll
Yeah.
multiple times. So yeah, and I think in book form, I've always, no, I wouldn't say I always wanted to write a book, but I guess it just made sense,
Hmm.
because of the amount of content I have in my head. I wanted to put it out
Yeah.
there, and that made more sense than other formats.
Hmm.
So yeah, and I actually had fun. I learned a
Okay.
lot as a self publisher.
Hmm.
So that process is quite interesting in and of itself.
Yeah.
So I loved it. It was really fun, long but fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, where can people find your book or books you've
Yes, you
got
can
to now?
find it on, yeah, on Amazon, or actually anywhere that you can buy online. We have the print version, audiobook also. By the way, the audiobook I had to mention, the link is free. You can get it
Okay.
for a free trial. You can get a book for free, audiobook for free.
Hmm.
Yeah, print version and Kindle for the second book. It's also print version and the Kindle.
Hmm.
Anywhere online you can buy it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah. What advice would you give to other people as well as other women looking to work in, I guess, I mean, to be specific, in the VFX industry, but I guess generally in any industry, what advice would you give to?
Okay, so just for in general to others, okay, definitely, hard work, because there's no shortcuts. You have to
Hmm.
put in the work for that. As for women looking to get into visual effects or any industry besides the hard work thing, which is, everyone applies to everyone regardless of, you know yeah, you may experience imposter syndrome, I
Hmm.
believe, because you know I know I did when I which is interesting, because when I got to work on The Walking Dead, and I haven't even graduated from school, I
Hmm.
felt like, wait, am I really that good? So that will happen,
Yeah.
especially when you're surrounded by men and you're only woman there. You'll be like, do I really belong here? So if you
Hmm.
encounter those thoughts, just know that it's normal. You
Hmm.
know, it's normal. If you have any sense of self reflection, that's normal to encounter those thoughts. Just to not let that hinder you. Again,
Yeah.
even though I felt like, do I really deserve to be working on The Walking Dead? Just
Hmm.
I still haven't graduated, whatever. I just acknowledge they exist. Those thoughts, you just
Hmm.
ignore them and
Yeah.
you go right through them and continue being awesome. So yes, that's for
Yeah.
women looking to get into visual effects.
Hmm.
You may experience that. Just acknowledge and move on. Don't let
Yeah.
it stop you. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, imposter syndrome, I think is quite common to everyone. I mean, I still get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, but I
Yes.
think I was trying to work out why it happens, and I don't know. In my mind, I think I've realized, or I've come up with a conclusion. But I guess in a short version is that what I've told myself anyway is that I think it potentially happens because everyone is so like amazing in terms like everyone's skills. Like you're working with like the best of the best in every department from all around the world. So it I guess it naturally you I think that's that's what it is, because like you just can't contemplate how amazing people are, and just I think yeah, it's just so common, it's just unheard of, it's just crazy. But
Yeah, it's actually, yeah, you're right. That is, it applies to everyone. And I think really it's just about acknowledging that, hey, I have these thoughts, but I'm not gonna, let that stop me from whatever I'm doing. And you're right that I believe also because you're surrounded by really awesome people,
Yeah.
then people tend to feel like, oh, do I really belong here? Am I
Mm.
really that awesome, just like them?
Yeah.
That kind
Yeah.
of thing. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's been really great to speak to you. But before I let you go, I'm just curious about what's next for you. Like what's in the plans, and what other books do you have coming up?
Yeah, so I can say to that is follow me on Instagram or
Yeah.
check out my website and you'll find out once
Oh
it's
yeah,
up.
sure.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Where can
so
yeah, let
yeah.
us know where people can find you.
Yeah, okay, so you can kind of just look up my name, Vicki Lau, or you
Mm.
can check out my website. I believe the links will be attached to this
Yeah,
episode as
I will do.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instagram, Amazon, YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. Most of the main stuff,
Okay.
except Facebook. Yeah.
All right. Amazing. Yeah, it's been great to speak to you, and just to
Yeah.
learn more about what you do and how you think, and yeah, it's just quite incredible. I think it's quite inspirational as well. So yeah, thank you so much for taking time out and just sharing with us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for sure.
Mm, thank you.